Thank you all for coming. And I want, before we get our regular program started, Janet Gary had asked to make a few announcements about things coming up here, so.
Super.
There she is.
Thank you. My name is Janice Gary, and I am president of League of Women Voters of Alachua County. And we are very proud of the 85% voter turnout during the November election. We're very proud that 73% of our Alachua County voters voted for single-member districts. And we're proud that 73% of people chose to have governance of GRU returned to our local officials. And we continue to follow that. The ruling by the judge will come down on April 2nd. But we're very proud of those things. Yesterday, the League and Alachua County Labor Coalition got together, and we are at the beginning stages of creating a national response to the events going on with our national government. Our national government is being dismantled very intentionally and undemocratically. So I don't have a lot of news to give you because we haven't figured out what we're going to do yet. But at a minimum, we will be starting to distribute things that people can do in 5 to 10 minutes a day. We need to keep the congressional phone lines flooded. You may have heard that usually the Senate phone line system gets 40 calls a day, and they are now getting 1,600 calls a day. That was about a week ago, but that's what we need to continue doing. So I have here a little scrawny piece of notebook paper, and if you belong to an organization, if you have a network with a religious organization, your worship group, a pickleball group, whatever group you belong to, if you would be willing to put down your contact information, networking is the name of the game here. And so if you would be willing to be a part of the network, then we could send you information that you could distribute to your networks and participate in yourself to work on, hi Helen, I didn't see you, it's so lovely to see you, to resist what is going on at our national level. Thank you so much, Jay.
Genesis reminds me of one of the wonderful things about having these forums in person as opposed to Zoom or some other medium is that we do have a personal contact. You can say hi to friends, but also you get the message, the words they're speaking about, our speakers, but also how they say it, the nonverbal communication, the tone of voice, all the things that AI hasn't digitized yet, as far as I know, but not yet, okay, poke. At any rate, I'm glad you all are here, and thanks for coming. Our guest today is Lauren Poe, a former city commissioner, couple times mayor, member of our community who most everybody recognizes, and so here he is, and he's going to talk to us about the Greater Gainesville International Center.
Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you for having me. Really warmed me to see so many old friends and familiar faces who I frankly have not seen in quite some time. I've been otherwise occupied with my activities and my family, and when you don't have a title in front of your name, you don't get invited to as many things. Helen knows that. I know Peggy used to always complain about, I don't get invited. So thank you for inviting me. It makes me feel special for a few moments here. I'm really excited to talk to you about Greater Gainesville International Center, and then try to give a very high-level update of what is happening in our country right now when it comes to issues like immigration and our international community in general. I think it was very interesting when I was originally invited to come speak at this month's event. Things were very different. And so I think at that time, the organization and my own view of what this discussion would be was very uplifting and optimistic and full of hope and promise. And what we've really learned in the last 3 weeks is that many of our neighbors are under direct threat, are living in a climate of fear and oppression, and the sort of nature of what I'm going to talk to you about is going to be reflecting that a little bit more. So let me, I'm going to go quickly over these first few slides. I do want to share with you who we are as an organization. You can see our mission here. I like to tell people that we're either a new old organization or an old new organization. Our roots go back to 1982, the beginnings of our Sister City program. Many of you in this room, I think, already know we were the first city in America to form a Sister City relationship with the Soviet Sister City. You can imagine in 1982 doing that and how audacious that was. But the folks that did it, Steve Kalishman and his wife, who he met in Novosibirsk, our sister city, while he was in the Merchant Marine, fell in love, and they wanted to, when she immigrated back here, keep a relationship going. And so they discovered the Sister City programs, started first under Eisenhower, and said, this seems like a good fit. And people, of course, said, no, it's impossible. This cannot happen. And they said, well, we think it can, and they were right. And so the first exchange took place in 1984, and it's been going strong. We still have a committed relationship with Novosibirsk. But now we have 13 sister cities, 14th on the way. Just within the last year or so, we formalized a relationship with Nizhyn in Ukraine. We are about to finalize one with the city of Brazil, a city in the Czech Republic. We're working on a city in Colombia, and we're re-engaging a couple of the cities that have been dormant, or what we call emeritus status. And so those are our roots. When I exited the mayor's office, I was looking around for what to do next, and I really wanted to continue serving our community and doing purpose-driven work, but also step into an area that I thought was being underserved. There's lots of great organizations around our community that do incredible work, but the international and immigrant community in Gainesville is 1/3 of our population, yet there's very little that specifically goes to support them and assist them. And in the work that I was able to do as mayor with our international community, ranging from welcoming and taking diplomatic delegations from Gainesville to other places around the world and bringing them here, but also some really difficult times. If you all remember, I was elected in March, took office in May of 2016, and then Donald Trump became president in the January of the following year. And so the dynamic changed for our international community overnight, much like we've seen it change in the last couple of weeks here, and it really allowed me to build connections and build relationships with so many different people in our international and immigrant community. Whether they were very stable and secure professors of engineering or doctors at the hospital, or marginal workers that were living on the fringes of our community and putting food on our shelves and building the houses that we live in, but constantly under threat, both real and perceived. So I pitched to the board that we needed to do more as an organization, and that's what got us to the Greater Gainesville International Center. So we try to be inclusive, collaborative, community-driven. We lean heavily into partnerships. We don't take over anything anybody else is doing. We try to work collaboratively with existing people and organizations, and then only if we find that there is a complete gap in a certain type of service or activity do we step in and try to provide that. So our international community, I'm guessing I'm speaking to the converted already here, but our international community is critical to who we are as a Greater Gainesville area. So we're great for business, for example. The rates of entrepreneurship and sort of business development amongst our international neighbors is much higher than people who were born here. It's good for community. It adds a richness and a sort of diversity of culture that just makes us a more wonderful place to live. It's good education. Our international community are leaders not only in the classrooms as instructors, but the students as well. And these students go on to make incredible contributions globally as well as right here locally. It's good for innovation. We see some of our most extraordinary breakthroughs in tech and biotech and all the areas that we see economic growth coming from our international neighbors. And it's good for our future. It leads to a more inclusive and a more loving and a more embracing path when we embrace everybody. So these are just a few examples of some of the activities that we take part in. Our Sister Cities program I talked about. Open World, this is an international diplomatic exchange program run through the U.S. Congress. It's actually run through Library of Congress. We've been welcoming people for years. We've welcomed over 25 delegations. Last year we did one from Serbia, we did one from Turkmenistan in late fall. We have a delegation coming from Bulgaria this summer. So we continue to do that. Over 60 delegations between our Sister Cities programs, but also participating in more local organizations like Jen and Jen, the Gainesville Immigrant Neighboring Inclusion Network, and trying to make sure that folks are safe and protected right. Just by the numbers, I know these are a little stale, but all these numbers came from a significant research project that was done through a grant the city of Gainesville got, and then the Ginny Network was formed to administer that grant. So these 19 numbers are a little bit stale, but you can still see that the immigrant population in Gainesville and Alachua County is significant. It also is the fastest growing part of our population, our international community, and continues to be so. So it is a big part of who we are. There's huge economic impact. That many of our immigrants are very recent arrivals, and that's the fastest growing, again, part of our population, and much more likely to be working age than any of the other background population. And that means both, they're in that window, they're not retired yet and they're not young, and so it's a huge part of our workforce. Here's the spending power. You can see total earnings there, total just over $1 billion now, with significant federal and local taxes being paid. And then I think the most important part here is the leftover sort of spending power that our international community has. You take that away, it completely decimates the economy in North Central Florida. It's a huge part of who we are. With an ultimate contribution of $2.4 billion to our local GDP, our Alachua County GDP. So these are the 4 pillars of our mission. You saw our mission earlier on there. We don't, and we're not, we're very deliberate about not being a food, flags, and festivals organization, but those things are important. It's important to build community, it's important to bring people together, and so we certainly do provide quite a few opportunities for cultural celebration. We have a musical series where we feature music from different traditions around the world. We did a Persian ensemble performance at the Thomas Center a few months ago. We've done African performances, we've done Brazilian performances. We also do some food events, we do some festivals, some big sort of, you just know what a festival is. You have everything from the little ones to more seasoned citizens, and it's really about building community, bringing people together that otherwise wouldn't have a chance to get to know each other and learn a bit about one another's cultures. Economic empowerment, this is probably the least developed of our pillars, but we're really working hard on creating pathways to economic opportunity internationally, and so trying to connect Gainesville business with opportunities in other parts of the world, but also giving our international community here the tools and the pathways they need to be successful. So there's a lot of excitement here. It's something that our local governments are quite interested in participating with, and we continue to build that out. It's complex, and it's something that if you don't do it right can really not have much of an impact, and so we're being pretty deliberate about that. Education and outreach. The main thing we do here is connect classrooms, mainly K through 12 classrooms here in Gainesville with classrooms in other countries. It can be a one and done thing where they do a little research and activity, then they get together on Zoom and share, what they learn, on up to like semester or year-long projects. This is something when I still taught at Santa Fe College I did with my classes. We had semester-long projects that we did between the two classrooms every week. They'd sort of add to that body of work, and then at the end they'd have a pretty exceptional product that they shared with everybody. And so really trying to grow understanding through connecting classrooms. And by the way, of course, the teachers get so much out of it as well. It's not just the students. And then finally, welcoming new neighbors. And this is where we've really spent most of our activity and time over the last year and a half. So we're trying to find ways to help support our immigrant and international neighbors in a wide variety of ways. So whether it's helping their children get registered in school and then giving them the support they need while they're in school and they're still learning English and need a little bit of extra help, to helping find housing, helping find employment, helping work through some of the bureaucratic processes that can be very intimidating, especially if English is not your primary language. And then most of all, we've been helping refugees resettle into our area. So people that have been cleared on an I-94 visa and enter the United States under the supervision of one of 10 agencies. You've heard of some of them: Catholic Charities, Lutheran Services, International Rescue Committee, who's our affiliate partner. And they have a 90-day period with which to receive a wide variety of services and then become self-sufficient. So International Rescue Committee is really the oldest refugee resettlement agency in the United States. It was started under the behest of Albert Einstein to try to get people that were facing oppression through the fascist regime in Germany, in Nazi Germany, and then later on Italy as well. And kind of grew into what we now know as the International Rescue Committee. It is an international organization. They have a footprint in every continent, save Antarctica, around the world. In the United States, they are most directly responsible for refugee resettlement. They're the second largest after Catholic Charities. And IRC resettles about 20 to 25% of all refugees that enter the United States. So we are a local chapter, a local affiliate, and we have helped resettle 6 families, one who came through Welcome US through Ukraine and not through IRC, and then 5 other families, one from Afghanistan, one from Guatemala, and the rest from Venezuela. We had another family who was supposed to be joining us and starting this process tomorrow, but their travel was canceled on January 20th. And about 10,000 people had their travel canceled on January 20th. They were cleared. I can't emphasize enough how rigorous of a screening process it takes to come over as a refugee. They are the most heavily vetted people that enter the United States, period. And the process takes at a minimum about 2 years on up to 13 to 14 years. So a lot of these people have been waiting a very long time to come, and were told sort of overnight that it was not going to happen. I'll get more into that as we go. So let's talk executive orders. Some of you may know that I used to teach economics and government out at Santa Fe College, and so when I get an opportunity to kind of step back into my teacher's shoes, I don't turn it down. And I always love teaching the executive order because there's lots to choose from that seems quite remarkable regardless of which president is issuing it. One thing that I think that we all recognize is that the Trump administration was incredibly prepared this term compared to last term. In 2016, well, first of all, they did not expect to win. They were as surprised as anybody. And so they did not have a long list of agency appointments and sort of the administrative folks to carry out his agenda. That is not the case this time. They were eminently prepared to win. They felt, I think, confident they were going to win. And we saw from day one, he had his people in mind for all the different, from secretary level positions on down to the Doge team. And so it's much different, and he issued more executive orders on the first day than any president ever had. And so, a lot of these, deal with immigration, of course not exclusively, and I'm going to go through most of these kind of more one by one, but it's as sweeping as approach towards immigration as we've seen, in the last century. So, indefinite pause or refugee resettlement, this is really what I was just alluding to. It's, quote, realigning the United States refugee admissions program. And what he put in that order is that he wants there to be an analysis of whether the refugee resettlement program is aligned with the national security and economic interests of the United States. There is to be a review and a report by both the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, we're all familiar with him, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, every 90 days to the President, making a recommendation on what the future of that program should be. And that will happen every 90 days, sort of until there's a different order. We do not expect there to be a recommendation to the President that says we should re-engage this program, and then it does have national security and economic benefits to the United States. I could argue vociferously the opposite. I think refugee resettlement is one of the most successful foreign policy tools we have. It builds goodwill. It brings people to our country who are absolutely committed to improving not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone around them. There was a huge longitudinal study done on the impact of refugee resettlement on crime in cities. And the kids don't say this anymore either, TLDR version, is that if you want crime to fall in your community, you need to recruit as many refugees as possible to move there. What we have seen in communities that welcome large amounts of refugees is the crime rate falls by 50 to 60%, almost instantly. It's phenomenal. So you see economic prosperity go up, you see crime go down, and you build relationships around the world that have long-lasting positive impacts on the United States. And so, just like USAID, which again, my uncle spent his career working for USAID, it's very dear to my heart. It is one of the most effective foreign policy tools that we have, and it's looking like it's not going to exist anymore, but we'll see. Another executive order remained in Mexico, really saying that folks need to wait in Mexico for their asylum claim to be heard. The problem with this is that you cannot request asylum until you're in that country, right? So until you've entered the United States, you cannot make a formal asylum request. So by stay in Mexico, it's effectively saying we're not going to entertain any more asylum requests, in the foreseeable future. And so, and then it has all kinds of other, technical challenges. logistical challenges. First and foremost, that Mexico is a sovereign nation, and they can't be told what they will or won't do with all of these families that are traveling as well. So this I think has a lot of uncertainty related to it. Changes in enforcement and sort of who is prioritized for removal, protecting the American people against invasion. I just my stomach turns when I hear that word, invasion. That's clearly a militaristic term, right? And when we look at people coming here, they are fleeing violence and or persecution, very often both. And so, in many cases, their only option is to get to somewhere where there is basic protections, basic safety, and really upends that sort of safe pathway that, let's face it, has not worked well in a long time, but at least was an option that people had to try to flee oppression and violence. Okay, let's see what I put this one. Oh yeah, so priority for removal or deportation. You've seen really leaning into expanded detention facilities. He's directed the U.S. military to build facilities able to house 30,000 people in Guantanamo Bay. This is problematic for many reasons, and you all know this, but I'm going to state the disclaimer. I'm not an immigration attorney or an attorney of any kind. But this really challenges the Constitution, that we're going to house people that are entitled to a legal process in seeking asylum in Guantanamo Bay, and it's hard to see that to me as anything other than in an internment camp. I mean, that really is the feeling that I get with that. Now, so far, and this came directly from an immigration attorney that I spoke to last week, most of the people being arrested and deported have outstanding deportation orders from judges already. Okay, so these are not folks who were randomly sort of swept up and sent out. They were very specifically targeting people who had gone through the process, and then a federal judge had made a determination and said, yes, here's an official deportation order. That is no different than we saw under the Biden administration, the first Trump administration, the Obama administration, the Bush administration. I mean, that's normal operating procedures for people that work in immigration and do deportations. What we're really seeing is it being much more visible, and that creates a climate of uncertainty and fear that really is different than what we've seen previously. We've seen the elimination of temporary protected status. This especially applied to people from Venezuela, from Haiti, and from El Salvador. Getting to know some of our Venezuelan families, I can tell you that anybody that openly opposed the Maduro administration and regime there, their life is in jeopardy. He does have crews that go around and find vocal opposition, or more importantly, financial opposition to his administration, and starts assassinating them. And that's been going on for quite some time. That is why one of our families had to flee in an emergency situation. So, by revoking the TPS, there's some, couple 100,000 of people that are here currently legally that no longer are going to be here legally because that TPS status was revoked. And then deputizing of local law enforcement, state officials. We saw that the governor deputized the Highway Patrol to do immigration enforcement, and Janice and I were talking earlier, this is sort of comical because the Highway Patrol is so underfunded and understaffed, and they can barely, keep cruisers on the interstates to, deal with the, the crashes that happen. They don't have like a surplus group of guys that can just go do immigration enforcement. And then I would really encourage you all to stay in close touch with and pay attention to what our new Sheriff Chad Scott and our relatively new Police Chief, Chief Moya with Gainesville Police Department are doing. Right now, it seems like they've really continued the approach that Chief Tony Jones and Sheriff Darnell employed back in 2016, which is immigration is not a local law enforcement issue, and they're going to make sure that people are safe. They know very, very well that the efficacy of a law enforcement office or department is built on trust and whether people trust that they can call if they're being victimized. And so by creating sort of barriers to say, hey, don't call or you're going to get deported, it has an incredible chilling effect on that. So they've both been, I think, so far, really loyal to the law and to their positions and job descriptions. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on local law enforcement by the administration, including, revoking funding, holding people criminally responsible if they don't kind of play ball. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Into birthright citizenship, they have a 14th Amendment problem. But that has not been a barrier to taking action in the past. So we'll see. I don't know. So let me give you a personal story here. I've got a daughter who's non-binary and very scared. Just very scared. She's hopefully going to be a student out here next year. It's an exciting time in her life, but it's a tough time for people who are trans, not binary, or just gay, and proud and out and all that. So she was very upset at the dinner table and said, the president just declared there's only 2 genders now. I was like, okay, look, my beloved. That's like the president declaring there's only 2 heights. Right? They're short and tall. Yeah. Right? And we're gonna make a little line at the doctor's office and everywhere, and like, okay, if you're under this, you're short, and you're taller than that, you're tall. It doesn't mean that there's not every other height still out there. He's no expert in any particular area of gender identity or height. And so, we're gonna make sure you're okay. There's lots of people out there that fought for these protections and aren't gonna just let them go. But it's similar to birthright citizenship, that here's this thing that's been a critical component of who we are as a nation as a way of addressing the transgressions prior to the Civil War and becoming a more inclusive society and wanting to do away with that with the stroke of a pen. So we'll watch. This is, of all the executive orders, the one that I sort of interpret as being the least enforceable, but we'll see. So ultimately, immigration is a federal issue. It's important to have uniform policies in all 50 states and the U.S. territories. There are, a lot of problems with local governments enforcing federal immigration issues. And so, again, it's important to pay attention to these things and ask important and probing questions for our local law enforcement leaders. But I think that we're fortunate here in that there does not seem to be an interest in sort of changing their role and moving forward. So that's sort of the long and short of it. Maybe I can turn this back on. I hopefully left plenty of time for questions or follow-up. But what I just want to close with is that the reason we exist, the reason Jenny exists, the reason that the Rural Women's Health Project exists, the reason that so many of these local organizations are here is for times like this. And that we have some mechanisms and we have an infrastructure to support our international community, regardless of their status, whether they're pre-documentation, in the process of seeking documentation, gotten their documentation and are still being harassed and bullied. We as a community, and if it's okay if I'm a little bit frank, if we look around, this is a very white presenting crowd, right? So we're the ones that have to stand up and provide that support and provide those resources and provide that protection for this 1/3 of our community that is absolutely integral to who we are. It's part of our identity. They're part of who props up and lifts up our economy and our sense of being. And it's going to be a tough 4 years. It's going to be a very tough 4 years. And so we just need to be committed and be unified in how we as a community, as Greater Gainesville, stand up for these folks in their time of need. And we will get through it, and we will end up in a better place in another 4 years.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. We now will entertain questions. Unfortunately, we only have one mic still, so I'll be running around. You just raise your paw.
Thank you, Lauren, for a wonderful presentation. I'm particularly concerned about Guantanamo Bay. And the reason is because there are a number of people here that have been and seen what's going on at the detention center, ICE detention center in McLean. It is a black hole. And I'm very concerned that when people are sent to Guantanamo Bay, they're further away, people won't know what's going on, and that's a big work.
Yeah, I mean, there's not an easy solution or answer to that. We're really going to need to depend on, I think, two groups. One is the Free Press, which is also an organization in general that's been under threat, and then the immigration attorneys that are legally allowed to gain access. Until Congress changes the laws, every person seeking asylum has a legal procedure and has certain rights that they're afforded. And so there will be people who are guiding them through that process. And if they see that their rights are not being afforded to them, I think we'll both make that public and also challenge, those transgressions in the courts. But no, there's no reason not to be terrified because it's so far removed from any oversight by the public or the press, and it makes it really challenging. Yeah.
John?
A question about as we face these challenges, there are organizations out there that are especially effective at using the courts and other ways, and we'll see Janice's group and how that works out. With regard to immigration and issues having to do with visas, etc., are there any outstanding organizations that need our support on a national level that you could recommend? Because some of us are using our wallets to help, as well as our feet and our hands and our telephones, etc.
Yeah, John, I think that's an important question, and what I would say is I'll ask Jay to send out my email to everybody following this, and I can follow up with, I think, a little bit more detailed information. So for example, there's an Association of Immigration Attorneys, American Association of Immigration Attorneys, I think something like that. That now I don't know if they need financial support. I think they're more of a professional organization that shares. I think it might have run out. Okay, I'll use my teacher voice. So that's just one off the top of my head. But I'll do a little bit more research on, what highly effective organizations are kind of on the front lines of both monitoring and then challenging when they find legal irregularities, we'll call them, and make sure that you know that that's an effective organization. I've always been more focused locally, as you all know. I was in local government, and so I think supporting organizations like ours, Rural Women's Health Project, those are folks providing direct support to people in our community right now. And so I think you have to sort of decide, where do you want to guide your money? And certainly those national organizations are critical, and they'll be much more unified and collaborative with other like-minded organizations, which we need. But we also need that sort of direct support with just helping people in their time of need right here. So I think having to make that decision, yeah.
David?
Yes, so I'm on the safety team of a local church here, Unitarian Universalist. And initially, we were thinking, okay, if somebody comes in that's creating trouble, we do a no trespass. We're thinking about the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys. But now, because you're talking about sanctuary, and we may have people come to our services to say, okay, so I've shown our group, our members, what a federal warrant looks like. We're in the Northern District. Mark Walker is the judge that's supposed to sign any search warrant. But they say the only way that we can prevent anybody from searching the whole church grounds is that we have a public sign and a private sign. And in theory, when the agents come in with the search warrant, they can search any public area, but if they don't have, I guess, a specific name or something, if we put some offices that are private, they're not supposed to be allowed in there. But I can't imagine our volunteer teams in that, if somebody's dressed up in black with weapons and said, we're here to search or whatever, it's like, I would see it. I could see it be a hard time standing up to them, and I don't think the GPD or the sheriff's department is going to be an ally. I don't know. I guess this is uncharted territory. So my question to you is: do we have rights if something's marked private and public, as far as something that's like a sanctuary, that they would honor and not go beyond?
So I don't know the answer to that public-private question. What I will say, and I'll do this too, when we send information back out, I will give you an example of an administrative warrant versus a bench warrant that allows for a premises to be searched, especially for purposes of identifying somebody who might be eligible for deportation. The administrative warrant is not valid. Only a federal judge's warrant is. And I'll show you pictures, just scans of both of those so you can see them. Share them with anybody that you can think of, your congregation. We're really trying to get those out to the immigrant community because they're the ones that are going to be served, at their apartment or whatever else. And so, and then helping people understand, if it's a federal warrant, there will be details in that warrant for what they are and are not allowed to search. Okay, I mean that's every warrant. Every warrant defines the parameters of what is or is not allowed to be searched. And so I think a careful reading of that, and then, this is going to be an era where it's going to require a little bit of courage and standing up to, yes, they are meant to look intimidating, they're meant to act intimidating, but if they don't have a warrant, they don't have a right to search your premises. And if they do have a warrant, but the warrant is, say, what we call a line of sight warrant, where they can only walk around and look, but they can't open something up or lift, then you hold them to that. And document if they violate the terms of the warrant, because that invalidates any probable cause they have from that point on. So, it's important to have people present and documenting and observing so they don't do what they're not legally allowed to do. Now, for groups like, far right sort of militant groups, they tend to just try to intimidate, not enter. And so, I don't know, Cincinnati showed us a pretty good example the other day of, how you push back against that. These are not government agencies, they're people that dress up and, vigilantes.
But
Yeah.
Lauren, the warrants are going to be in English. Most of these immigrants are not going to be fluent in English enough to be able to stand there
Yeah.
and read it.
No question. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about the church, and there should be English speakers there, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, if it's at a home. But we give out cards that they can share with law enforcement. By the way, the sheriff's office and GPD is very familiar with these cards, and hey, I don't speak English. I need you to provide interpretation before I speak to you at all. So, we have these cards and they're widely distributed, and then we, try to tell people that if there is a warrant, you just, you don't refuse or not cooperate, but you say, I'm not going to talk to you and I'm not going to let you in until you have an interpreter here, because they are entitled to an interpreter. And then, you can kind of work through, but it's so intimidating and, But listen, at least our refugee folks and a lot of the other folks too, they're coming from situations that are very intimidating also. They're not new to violence and oppression. So, they're gonna do what they can, I think, for the most part to protect themselves.
Go ahead, Chris.
This is kind of a long shot question, but it seems like we're always trying to defense. How do we get ahead of the man? And I'm calling him the man because I don't want him in my head. How do we get ahead of the man so that we get onto the offense? And I take it right to my own family. I think a lot of us have family members who were among that 47% that voted for the man. And the strategies of someone that's as a loose cannon as he is might very well be just to keep us off the guard all the time. Yes. Get rid of AID.
Keep jabbing.
Now, I expect that that might happen. Boy, that'll be a tragedy, a major tragedy. And some of you may know, but we worked at the University of Florida with AID for a long, long time, many years, and I wouldn't like to be back in that administrative post where right now I'm figuring out how to handle families that are overseas working on USAID projects. But what do you see ahead in terms of offense? Is there any way we can get on offense in my own family?
Well, yeah, and this isn't probably going to be a satisfactory answer, but there's an election in less than 2 years, right? There's an election in less than 2 years where if the other party takes control of the House, there's a bulwark against action being taken. There's also a great opportunity to gain seats back in the Senate, where you've got these institutions that are the ones that have legitimate power to push back against the executive. What they're trying to create is a unitary executive with almost unchecked power. But this is also a strategy, and I think all of you realize this. That Steve Bannon called it, flooding the zone. Flooding the zone. Thank you. Yeah. You just dump as much as possible, as quickly as possible, so none of us can possibly pay attention to all of it. And then we pick our own things too, right? So if your thing is USAID, then you're furious about USAID, and you're not really paying attention to the other 99 things that are happening. If you're, the number of people right now that are really focused on Kennedy and HHS and, he's going to clean up our food supply. Meanwhile, getting rid of federal support for vaccinations. So that, it's our offense as a country right now has to be paying attention what is actually going on, and so much of this is distraction.
Right.
It's distraction for the real core things they're trying to do, which is a sort of economic remaking of the country, as well as disassembling the administrative state, as they call it. Getting rid of the federal government the part of the federal government does the work. And so, I think being really, really cognizant of that, and then sharing, like, when something important comes up through your networks, like, this is what's happening right now. Let's not be distracted by everything else.
Joyce, you had a question?
Well, I was, churches can be a problem, but I was wondering about schools.
Can you stand up?
Well, the question was, what about schools? Yeah, I mean, really, really. So there was a sort of understanding until recently that you wouldn't go do enforcement at schools, churches, other places of safety, right? You could get them outside, but not there. So again, is ICE going to go into a school like here and do enforcement? Maybe. I think the point of that is to create a climate of fear.
Yes.
Like, I think they cannot go into any schools anywhere if people are afraid to be there and afraid to go. Then that's the goal. Like, that's the point. So yeah, they don't have the resources and the time to go to all the schools and all the churches, and they don't have to. They can go to one, and there can be video, and then it kind of creates that chilling effect for anywhere else that's sort of similar. So, I mean, that's the sad thing about it. But it's clearly deliberate. I mean, it's a very intentional way of sowing mistrust and fear, especially, the people you sit next to in class and that you worship next to on Saturdays or Sundays or, wherever you worship.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what's your story? Since I got off the commission, I've been real involved with building community and a changing climate. And what we're seeing with this, your question about what do we do, what Janice has got going on with the phone things and flooding our senators and our Congress people's calls, but also it's really important that we reach out to those individuals who did vote for Trump, who are the ones that would say, he wasn't going to do that. And the family members who are farmers and their products, their agricultural products were part of that U.S. aid that was going to other places, to get them to call their representatives. On a short note, I could talk too, because this is just such a passion. We are living in a time that we can take our democracy to action again, and it needs to be like the founding fathers who gathered during the summer with no AC, no cell phones. Their wives weren't there, but maybe a mistress or two. But they compromised. They identified what they could do and gather together. It wasn't a party thing. It was building a country thing. And I've never seen it in my lifetime where we've had an opportunity to do that again. And there was a young guy at the university last week on the climate summit who had grown up in the Tea Party, and he has since been developing a nonpartisan action to protect the planet, that the earth is nonpartisan. And he was really powerful to say, if we can drop our political party identity, we can build bridges and flood those phone calls. There's an election in April for somebody to take Matt Gaetz' place in the Panhandle, and somebody else up in Jacksonville. Yeah. But if you're overwhelmed, okay. But Rachel Maddow, Ezra Klein, there's a lot of great resources to keep yourself energized and pissed off. But to know that you can do something with it. Don't piss in the wind.
I just wanted to ask a practical question. What happens to the people who have lost their protective status? Who are they now?
Yeah, so it's coming in two waves. One sort of immediate, and another in about 5 months, because that's when they timed out and they're just not going to be renewed. They will no longer have a legal basis for being in the United States. So then they will be eligible for deportation. Now again, they'll have to go through a process, but that's exactly what will happen.
This is
is more of a local question. One of the great benefits that personally with all the immigrants here are all the restaurants and food trucks and that sort of thing. I was wondering, does your organization help them at all financially in getting set up once they're here? And then also I just wanted to mention there's a wonderful short series on Netflix called Mo, M-O, short for, he's a Palestinian comedian named Mohammed. And it's just about the life and plight of immigrants, some of them here illegally. And it's funny and it's very poignant, and I highly recommend it. But back, do you help people with setting up businesses and that sort of thing?
So we would love to, but our organization can barely help itself. We're living week to week, whether we can stay in our facility. We can't make payroll. So it would be great to have the funding resources to do more of what you're speaking about.
Do you know with referrals and all then, where they can go for help?
We do whatever that we can depending on their individual situations, yeah. So we try to work with the city and the county and, just to help them navigate the best we can. But our organization lost about $175,000 on January 20th. So, I don't know, I'm doubting I'm going to be able to continue doing this job, for another month.
Joe, you have a question?
Yeah. One thing we need to do is really seek out independent media sources and get away from the corporate news and all the hammering they do on just the same stories over and over and over. I published Gainesville Iguana. I brought some with me on page 24. There's a listing of people like Heather Cox Richardson, Robert Hubble, Robert Reich, Jim Hightower. There's a lot of people out there putting out really good information. And the other thing is, if you have a computer and any skills at all, you can share information to friends and other people. Reach out to those relatives or whomever, and just really support one another, because we are in this together. This is not going to be easy. Arundhati Roy at the time of the pandemic talked about pandemics being like a portal that you go into and then you come out the other side, and it's a little bit different. And it's hit me that this is like a pandemic now. We have this political disease that's hit our country, and we got to come through it somehow or other, and we're going to do that together. And I hope that there's other organizations around the state that are also helping people. Can you speak at all to that?
Yeah, I think the leading, it's not as much, well, it's an organization, but it's also a collective. So Florida Immigrant Coalition, FLIC. Yeah. So anyway, they represent organizations all around the state that do support work for immigrants. And they sort of are a collaborative organization that sort of connects them and brings them together, but also allows you to share information. Hey, this is going on in Immokalee, or what, So I would check out FLIC. That's probably the best statewide organization that can keep you sort of informed.
Yeah, I just wondered if you're a 501c3 organization, what your budget is and where you do get your funds.
Well, our budget for this year was $250,000. I need to submit an amended budget to my board at our next meeting. Our budget will probably be, under $100,000.
And where does the money come from?
Well, are you
a 501c3 group?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we've been working hard on private fundraising. It's hard. And then we were getting money from International Rescue Committee specifically for refugee resettlement services. So yeah, that is gone. That entire budget is gone. Not just for us, like everywhere. So yeah, and and it's tough because every moment I'm fundraising, I'm not providing direct services to clients, right? So it's really tough, and I'm rather spend my time helping a person than asking somebody for money, but you can't, no mission, no money, no mission, right? So, it's tough, but we'll just keep doing the best we can.
Lauren, in the olden days when I was a city commissioner, there seems to be a lot of gray-haired city commissioners here, and you'll join us.
we started a job matching parking lot downtown. We just took a city parking lot and told the Cuban immigrants that that's where they could congregate, and we told the citizens, if you need help, go to parking lot number 3 and hire some of these people. I don't know if legally you could do that, but the results were wonderful from that program. And a lot of the Cuban immigrants ended up with permanent jobs because then they had a friend in the community that they'd worked for and could give them recommendations. We don't seem to be doing that now. Is it because legally it's dangerous to do that?
Well, I think the informal networks like that exist still. They're probably not as visible as they once were for safety and security reasons. But, you know, we have organizations that are supposed to do that work that are just not effective. Like Career Source North Central Florida is not effective, yeah. And they're supposed to be the ones, right, they get the funding, they have staff. They have not been helpful for our, so we're working, we're trying to figure out how do we develop a more informal network to match skills, because so many folks come here that have extraordinary skills. You know, language is a barrier, so really trying to direct people to ESL classes is always our first step. You know, the better command you have over English, the more people are going to be interested. But a lot of that ends up being word of mouth and that informal network too. So, you know, I think that's still a major part of it. Yeah.
What we did with most, and I've been working with Afghanistan, in the cell phone with translation on it. It's all we have to do, and then they are bilingual wherever they go.
I don't know if you can have good conversations using an app. They're not great. They're good for emergencies, but they don't, you can't have a conversation with them. But we do have, I mean, we have access to a language line. So we do use professional interpretation services when we can meet with folks. But just, yeah, app to app isn't ideal.
Well, maybe that's something that some of the IT young guys on your community can work on.
Sounds like an after-hours conversation.
We've come to the end of our time, everybody. I'm sure Lauren would be very happy to hang around, answer other people's particular questions, but look,
Thank you for having me.
before we leave, Alan March, one of our board members, has got, he visited Paul Hargrave recently, as you all know, gravely ill, has been working.
Louder.
Paul Hargrave, news of Paul Hargrave. Here's Alan March.
Yeah, I think many of you know Paul Hargrave. He has served as our program chair for over 20 years, and he is now resting quietly at home under the care of hospice. My wife Janet and I spoke with his wife Doris on Friday evening and received an update last night. He is resting quietly but no longer communicating. But we saw the wonderful card that many of you signed and was given to him, and his wife also recognized this. So on behalf of Paul and his wife Doris, I want to thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. Next month, we have as a speaker Amy Jong, who is in the Business Administration Department, talking about communication in business and in political campaigns too. I think she's going to get off into that, so that should be top of everybody's mind. Be sure to register early. Okay, thanks for coming.